Total Screen proudly presents their official podcast, On Screen, with your hosts, Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig. Everybody, and welcome to On Screen, the official podcast of the Total Screen. My name is Tyson.
My name is Will.
And today we are going to be talking about Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. So we're going to be talking about that movie. We also got some stuff coming up on the horizon, and we got a few news stories and some trailers to go over in On Beat. Let's get started with On the Horizon.
On the horizon.
On the Horizon is where we talk about what's coming up in the next week or so, and we're going to be starting things off with Bob's Burgers, which is returning on Sunday, September 8th on Fox. Also as part of that Sunday night Fox animation lineup, they have a new animated series called Universal Basic Guys that's about two brothers who are on $3,000 a month UBI. So they're making a show about UBI now.
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious. Interesting premise. We'll see what they do with that.
Right.
How you turn that into an actual show. But
yeah,
I guess the idea is that people don't have jobs anymore or something.
The theory behind it is like automation is going to increasingly take jobs from humans, and people still need to be able to live.
I just wonder how that's going to work as a show.
Yeah, I have no clue. It's like, oh, they get money for free. Like, how is that a show? It's like, okay,
yeah,
people have money. I don't understand how that makes a show. Yeah.
We'll have to see. That's coming on Sunday, September 8th, same as Bob's Burgers. Then on Monday, September 9th, Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2 comes to PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X. So Henry Cavill is drooling right now. He's very happy.
Yes, he is, yeah.
Yars Rising, which is a WayForward developed game that's a sequel to a, what is it? Is it a NES or is it a Atari
Oh, it's
game?
Atari. It's Atari.
Yeah, it's an old Atari game.
Atari arcade game, actually.
Yeah. That is coming, the sequel to that is coming on Tuesday, September 10th to PC, PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and Switch.
Man, WayForward
everything.
Is busy.
It's also coming to your air conditioner and your thermostat and
thermostat.
Yep. And I heard it's coming to some people's
and your pregnancy test.
Yeah, it's coming to your pregnancy test near you. Lollipop Chainsaw RePOP, which was a collaboration between James Gunn and Suda51. This is the remaster, is coming on Thursday, September 12th to PC, PS5, Xbox Series X, and Nintendo Switch.
Mm-hmm.
How to Die Alone, which is a new comedy series about a single woman who's trying to change her life after she has a brush with death. And that is coming on Friday, September 13th to Hulu. Uglies, which is a dystopian science fiction, I believe it's a movie, not a series, about basically everybody gets cosmetic surgery once they reach a certain age. It's like mandatory. And it's like a YA thing.
Yep, and it's cast entirely by like CW supermodels walking around pretending they're ugly and that they need the surgery.
Yeah, that is coming on Friday, September 13th to Netflix. Funko Fusion is coming on Friday, September 13th to PC, PS5, Xbox Series X, and Switch. This is basically those Lego games that you have with all the different properties, but like all of the properties happening at the same time, and it's Funko instead of Legos.
Yeah.
But that's on Friday, September 13th. Also, pretty much to everything, I guess. So not the last-gen consoles. Everything that's considered current, including the Switch. Speak No Evil is coming to theaters on Friday, September 13th. That is the new movie with Will McAvoy. Or not Will McAvoy. What's his name?
James McAvoy.
James McAvoy.
Yeah.
Who's Will McAvoy?
I've never heard of a Will McAvoy in my life.
I think that's a character in like a show or something.
That's probably is.
Speak No Evil is coming on Friday, September 13th to theaters. Also coming to theaters on Friday, September 13th is The Killer's Game, which is the new Bautista movie. So that's the one where he thinks he's dying, so he puts out a hit on it. He's like a hitman.
Oh, yeah,
and he thinks he's going to die, so he puts a hit on himself and then finds out that his doctor screwed up and he actually isn't dying. So now he has to survive the hit he placed on himself.
Yeah.
But that as well, like I said, Friday, September 13th to theaters. That is it for our On the Horizon section, and now we're moving on to On Beat.
On Beat.
On Beat is our news section. We have a few news stories and some trailers to go over. I'm going to start things off. Dead Boy Detectives was canceled after one season by Netflix. This is a series that's directly connected to Sandman, which was a success on Netflix, but I think I was the only person in the entire world that watched Dead Boy Detectives. So.
Okay, yeah, I didn't. So, I mean.
Yeah, so another one bites the dust.
Rip.
Yeah, Annapurna and Remedy are partnering on TV and film projects for Control and Alan Wake and that whole connected universe of theirs.
Yeah, I mean, makes sense. Those are kind of properties that are prime for television adaptations and other adaptations.
Doesn't the new Alan Wake game already have like a live action component to it or something?
Maybe.
Isn't that like famous for having like this whole like live action part?
No, you're thinking of the game they did for Xbox called Quantum Break, which had like a TV show live action segment to it. Like it was advertised as an interactive TV show.
I think the new Alan Wake did too, the sequel, not the original.
Maybe I haven't heard anything like that about it, but possibly. I haven't played it, so
they're going to turn that into TV and film projects apparently, but we don't really know anything else beyond the fact that they're going to do that or they're planning to put that into development. There's no any other news besides that. The next news story is a rumor, so it's actually kind of three conflicting rumors, which is that DC, for the DCU, is going to be looking to cast Hal Jordan for the Lantern series, which is supposed to be kind of like a True Detective-esque take on Green Lantern. And it's a TV series, a drama for Max. And it came out that Josh Brolin was in talks for the role. And then it came out that Ewan McGregor and Matthew McConaughey are also in talks for the role. The Matthew McConaughey one in particular is kind of funny because they're going for like a True Detectives vibe for Lanterns. And Matthew McConaughey was one of the two leads in True Detective season 1.
Yeah.
Which is
the
basis.
Which is pretty funny, yeah.
That would be interesting if they cast him for that, but we talked about this before we started the show, and I agree with you. I think Josh Brolin might be the best fit for Hal Jordan of the three.
Yeah, I agree. I think of those three, I like Josh Brolin the best.
Yeah, Josh Brolin's like the best fit. Matthew McConaughey is like the most kind of funny. Like, it would be really weird and funny if they picked him, just because of the True Detective thing.
Right, oh yeah.
And Ewan McGregor would do fine. He doesn't scream the role to me, you know?
Right, yeah, exactly.
Next news story is that Alfred Molina, Gina Davis, Alfre Woodward, and Bill Pullman have been cast in a new supernatural series from Netflix and the Duffer Brothers, that's the creators of Stranger Things, called The Burrows, which is about a group of unlikely heroes at a retirement community banding together against an otherworldly threat. So,
that sounds interesting.
Another kind of supernatural thing, except instead of kids, it's like retirees. They should have just cast the kids from Stranger Things because they're retirees now.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Have you ever seen Bubba Hotep?
Yes, that was amazing.
Yeah, Bubba Hotep, for those who don't know, is a movie that starred Bruce Campbell, and he played Elvis Presley. But he was an Elvis Presley that was in a retirement home who had changed his identity, traded places with some other guy, like an impersonator. And that impersonator is the guy that lived out the rest of Elvis's career and then eventually died as Elvis. And so our Elvis ended up just kind of retiring out of the public eye, and he just kind of looks like Elvis impersonator, but he's actually Elvis. And it's him and this black guy that's retired with him who thinks he's JFK.
Yeah.
And they're fighting against a mummy.
Yeah, it's great.
I kind of got a little bit of vibes from when I read this story about that, just because of the whole retirement, community thing. Although that was a retirement home. A retirement community isn't the same. They're not like in a place getting fed pills and being mistreated by nurses. That's not what this story is, apparently. It's a retirement community, which means they're more like active and stuff. And then our last news story before our trailers is that Concord has been ended by Sony. This is Sony's new games as service game that was revealed at a State of Play, and nobody gave two shits about it when it was shown.
8 years in development, $200 million spent on it.
This is why companies should stop doing games of service games.
Yeah, especially this was another hero shooter in the vein of Overwatch. And I just think the market is oversaturated. Let's talk about this, it plays like Overwatch, but it's not doing anything different. And the thing is, like, games like Overwatch are free to play. Sony was still charging $40 up front for this. And I was thinking, I don't know if you could be successful as a games as a service and not be free to play. Because I was thinking, like, the ones that are successful now. Yeah, Splatoon, yeah. I think I think Nintendo has the secret sauce with that. I think, like, yeah. You know what's remarkable about Splatoon is that it's a live service game, but it's not like monetized by microtransactions.
No,
all the updates are free.
It's got paid DLC for both 2 and 3. Both have paid DLC segments, but they're like separate things. It's not like
separate. Yeah, those are like single player campaigns. Funny enough. Yeah, you know, like so
yeah, it's nothing like consequential to the game itself.
No, like all the new weapons, new updates to the levels, the features are like all added for free to the game.
I'm going to say about this what I said to somebody else about this, which is that I don't think there's much that could make me happier than if all free-to-play games, all games as service games besides Splatoon, which kind of isn't, and all Minecraft games just cease to exist.
Right.
Nothing would make me happier.
Sony's attempted pivot to games as a service games is so far proving to be a disaster.
Platinum had a disaster with it, and that was a Sony-funded game, wasn't it? Was it Babylon's Fall? Oh, no, it was Square Enix. Okay.
Yeah, that was Square Enix.
Yeah, it's just these games, they don't look good. They're not really that interesting. This one in particular, it's a hero shooter. The whole point of a hero shooter is that you have to have these very iconic-looking, interesting characters, and the characters are, like, painfully generic.
Yes, they are. There's, like, no personality there, which I think is, like,
it's like the game was designed by a focus group.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was definitely, like, they're designed to be, like, what's, like, going to be, like, the least offensive cast of characters that, like, cast, like, the broadest net. You know, it's like, yeah.
While being completely indistinctive.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think that's also a big reason, too.
It's just, like, isn't games as service games, like, the people who play those games actively, the people who contribute monetarily to those communities, it's similar to, like, MMOs, in that it's a person, basically, that game becomes their life. Look at, like, Fortnite players. Like, Fortnite players pretty much only play Fortnite. That's, like, all they play. They don't play other games, they play Fortnite, you know?
Well, you gotta ask yourself, if you're big into Overwatch, if you play it all time, you know, like, is this going to convince you to put it down and pick this up and play
Overwatch is still going.
Yeah.
They have Overwatch 2 now, which, like, works cross-platform with Overwatch, or cross-game with Overwatch. Like, it doesn't matter which one you have, they both work, and that's already still existing. Valve is, like, beta testing a games-as-service game. Why would you pick this over that, you know? It's like, it's one of those things where, like, the people that play these games are already playing those games. So there really isn't much room for more of those games. And it's like, that's why I compared it to, like, MMOs. Like, World of Warcraft came out, and that, like, both put MMOs on the map and killed MMOs at the same time. Yeah. Because why would you play something else?
I think you got like a handful that are still going, you know, with smaller communities, but the big dogs are like
nothing that you're going to put 8 years of development and that kind of budget into.
No, but the big dogs are World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy 14.
Yeah, exactly. You know, it's like you have to either be a completely different experience that stands out very strongly, which this was not, or you have to be not in that field where, you know, it's like Call of Duty is a game that comes out like every year, or I think it's slowed down now. I don't think it comes out every year now, but it used to come out every year.
Oh, it still comes out every year.
Okay, so Call of Duty comes out every year, a new one. It's got its fan base. They buy the new game every year and play that game. Now here's the thing. There's still room for competition there, because when you finish one Call of Duty game and you're going to go to the next one, a company can step in and say, hey, instead of buying Call of Duty 76, why don't you try our first-person shooter?
Right,
there's still some room to compete there. Even though they completely dominate that market, there's room. You know what I mean? But you look at something like Fortnite, you look at something like Overwatch. Those games, like, they have their audience. They satisfy their audience. They're still putting out content for their audience. You're not asking them to not pick up Overwatch 7. You're asking them to put down Overwatch 2. And that's like a bad idea because they already have Overwatch 2, you know? So it's like, it's in multiple ways, it was just a really dumb idea for Sony to pivot in this direction. And for everybody who's trying to pivot in this direction, Platinum Games is still trying to pivot in this direction. Even after Babylon Fall failed so drastically, they're still trying to do more games as service games. They mentioned that when it failed. When Babylon Fall failed, they were like, oh, we have other ones in development. So I don't get it. I think they're a blight on the gaming industry and just need to go away.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is, like, I don't mind if they exist. Like, it's fine. I just, like, I don't want, like, every game to be a live service game. That's my thing. I don't want them to, like, just stop making... Like, a good example is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, which I loved. I got an Xbox for that game, and I played it. I loved it. They made a sequel. Sequel was just as good. Then they made an MMO, which is still going, you know, the Old Republic. And at the time they launched it, producers said, oh, this is KOTOR 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're still running the Old Republic as an MMO. They never made another single player KOTOR, and that sucks balls. Yeah. Like, that's the big thing, like, I worry about is, like, they'll do something.
Well, you signed on to KOTOR for the story experience, and then instead they're like, well, why have a story when you can just play with a bunch of people with a generic story in the background that you don't really care about or that doesn't not really directly tied to your character in any way?
Right, yeah. And, like, my big thing is, like, oh, like, the next thing I'm going to enjoy, like, suddenly they're going to decide, like, Elden Ring should be a live service game, and I'm never going to get, like, the game I loved again. It's like, that's what I worry about. Like... Yeah,
and on top of that, it doesn't work.
I don't care. Yeah,
this stuff doesn't work. The live service games that are hits are like lightning in a bottle. It's not something you can just go, oh, this is the trend of the industry. Let's copy that and put it out. Because the thing you're copying is still getting updated and still out. Nobody wants to switch from the thing they're already invested in. You know, it's just dumb. To me, it's like trying to sell a house exclusively to people who just moved into a house. It's like, oh, we see you just moved in. Are you interested in buying a house? It's like, no, I just moved in. I just think the whole thing's stupid. But if you enjoy these games and you just want nothing but live service games, then, you know, I guess I just can't relate to you in your crazy ways. Let's move on, though, to our trailers. We're going to start things off with Agatha All Along, which had a trailer that finally excited me. All of the Agatha All Along trailers have been very uninteresting to me, or they've been, like, anti-hype.
Okay. You'll have to, like, walk me through this because my opinion did not change with this trailer. So,
I think it's just the character dynamics, like, work better in this trailer than they did before. And it makes it look like something that's actually interesting to watch now. Whereas, like, the tone I wasn't feeling in the other trailers, and the character dynamics just weren't matching correctly. And it just felt like that PG horror kind of thing. And this kind of felt more like a weird kind of sequel to... This felt like what I thought Agatha All Along was going to be when it was announced.
This feels like a more, like, edgy version of Hocus Pocus.
I think the old trailers were that. The old trailers were not even a more edgy version of Hocus Pocus. They were just Hocus Pocus. Like, here's Hocus Pocus with Agatha.
I love how they're bending over backwards to not say, like, Joe Locke is playing Wiccan. Like, they're trying to do some surprising reveal for that. And it's like, we know, especially when you have it so blatant as, like, when he says who he is and, like, you have, like, magic suddenly, like, block what he's saying.
Well, but that's going to be part of a story conceit, though. So, like, I understand it from there. Like, some people were writing about that as if they added that in just for the trailer.
And I love, like, the
that's
trailer
it's a story
like,
conceit.
They had, like, Joe Locke on the screen talking about series, like, they had his name and then, like, the character he was playing was named Teen. I'm like, okay, yeah, Teen. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. I think they realized that they were too hasty in saying who he was going to be playing when they were casting the role.
Right, yeah.
And then they're like, oh shit, well this is actually a part of the story conceit. Like, why did we do that? Oh, well, let's just pretend we didn't.
Yeah, let's just pretend we did it. It's fun. I mean,
are we sure he's playing Wiccan? Are we sure he's not Ralph Boner?
Right. I mean, we're not 100%. They never said Wiccan was going to be in this, but I mean, it's pretty obvious.
That it's Ralph Boner? I agree. It's totally Ralph Boner.
Yeah, it's totally Ralph Boner, yeah.
Obviously Ralph Boner. Who else could it be? Not like it's going to be Mephisto. It's Ralph Boner.
They're gonna make like it's gonna be like new jingle. It's gonna be it's Ralph Boner all along.
Then we got a trailer for a Minecraft movie. This is the most recent of the trailers we're talking about today. This just came out today. I know you're super psyched for this, but you can't be more psyched than me, somebody who loathes Minecraft.
Yeah, I want to preference this like saying I like Minecraft. I haven't really played Minecraft that much. I played it a little bit and it's fine for what it is, but it's just like the whole thing of having to gather resources and like the crafting, like they have it obviously in Minecraft and then so many like survival games. I just don't have the patience for it. I'm sorry.
Plus,
It's
if you play it and you watch the movie and you do all that stuff, you're just sending money into the pockets of a very trash person.
Right. Oh yeah. So it's fine. I always thought it was fine. I never had like any animosity towards Minecraft. I watched this and I have animosity towards Minecraft. This is like the worst thing
You had no animosity towards Minecraft and you saw this and saw the error of your ways.
Yeah. This is just horrible. It's like I know why it exists. It's
Because you can make
cashing
money
in.
off little kids.
Yeah, it's cashing in on a big property that's popular with kids. This is probably going to make $1 billion, despite how bad it looks. But like, I just was not prepared. Like, I was when they announced this like a couple of years ago. Like, I was already like trying to picture in my head like how this is going to work as like a live action movie and not look stupid as hell. I was like, okay, like how are they going to make this like not look completely stupid? And the answer was they weren't even going to try. They're going to make it look even stupider than they imagined.
Yeah.
Which is a feat. I mean, what the hell are they doing
saying
with
so much
Jason
negative
Momoa?
stuff about this. Let's say something positive. Here's what I have to say that's positive about this movie. It's really nice that Jack Black and Jason Momoa are getting paychecks.
Yes. The pig monsters looked fine, I guess.
Oh, no. Like, we already got the good stuff out of the way.
Oh, okay.
It's just that they got paychecks. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, this is gonna be a disaster, but like kids are probably gonna eat it up. So like, it's gonna make $1 billion and we're gonna get like 20 of these movies. Oh man, this is directed by Jared Hess, and dude has fallen off so hard. From Napoleon Dynamite to this.
Yeah. Napoleon Dynamite. He did Nacho Libre, right? And then
yeah, he did Nacho Libre. Which I guess that explains Jack Black being in it.
Go back to Brigham Young. Go back to Napoleon Dynamite because this does not look great.
No.
Next we got trailer for Mario and Luigi Brothership. Our second trailer for it. We first got a trailer in the June Nintendo Direct.
Yeah, it looked amazing. I still can't believe this is real. It looks amazing. I still can't believe this is happening. I was 100% for sure after Alpha Dream was shut down that we would never see another Mario and Luigi game.
That's kind of not Nintendo's way. Nintendo's way is to make you sure that there isn't going to be another game in a franchise, and then when you least expect it, to drop one.
Yeah, because like this is like the first new like non-remake Mario and Luigi game since 2015, so it's been a while.
Yeah, been a while. Speaking of things that would profit monstrous people, the song "Been a While" would too.
Oh yeah. That guy like proved himself to be a douchebag. That sucks. But anyway.
And then lastly, we got a new 4.5-minute trailer for The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom. Plus, besides just the trailer, we're going to talk about, some of the stuff that's being said about it because it was at PAX West. So
yeah,
people have been
apparently
playing it.
we got to play like an hour-long demo of it at PAX.
Mm-hmm.
And
the main insight we can get from that is the people that have played it have pretty much universally praised it. The comment I've heard is that the talk around the show is that when they're asking each other what games they're playing, they're saying, "Oh, so what games do you like besides Zelda?" Just meaning that's the given.
Like
that's the game of the show. And
I saw like somebody
I
saw somebody say like it doesn't have the technical issues that Link's Awakening remake had.
Which is interesting because it looks vastly more complex.
Yes, it does. So
I mean, the world looks like way, way larger.
So that means like Nintendo
looks more impressive.
So that means Nintendo went in and like improved the engine because it's clearly using the same engine that they used for Link's Awakening, but like it's clear like they improved it.
Well, it's got the same art direction, so we would think it's the same engine. But
I mean,
knows?
it makes sense because this obviously like has reused assets and stuff. I mean, the gap between releases is fairly small, so I mean, it makes sense that they would do that. Like, it would take way longer to, like, redo everything from scratch. You'd be waiting a longer time for this game.
But it also seems that they implemented, like, systems into the engine that would require significant changes. Like, they implemented basically stuff similar to, like, the chemistry engine that's in Breath of the Wild into this.
It's
when you
like
start
so
to get
much.
to that kind of level of stuff, it's almost like they just recreated the whole engine. Or maybe they're just using the straight up Breath of the Wild engine.
Maybe.
And they're just using the assets. And it looks like it's using the same engine because they're using the same assets.
That might be more likely, actually. Yeah, it looks amazing. They showed, like...
Every time we see more of the game, it looks better.
This is going into, like, the other realm and all this stuff. And like, now, like, Zelda can, like, pick up a sword and, like, she can be a sword fighter.
For a very limited amount of time.
For a very limited amount of time, yeah. But it also, like, looked from the trailer, it also, like, looked like you could upgrade it.
Yeah, like it says, like, level 1 next to the sword gauge, or...
Yes, yeah, they never, like, outright stated it was upgradable, but it says level 1. You clearly see, so it implies it's upgradable.
Yeah. They also showed, like, a new system where you can get things similar to the Echoes, but they're, like, little robots, or
Yeah, little, like, robots, yeah.
Automatons. Yeah,
yes.
that you can, like, place into the game, and they work kind of like Echoes, except they'll take some damage and then blow up or something. And you get them through a guy who makes them for you, and you, I guess, purchase them, or I don't know, give them parts for it. It's interesting. They just keep adding new layers onto the game. And the concern was like, oh, so you're just going to solve everything by placing a bunch of beds and climbing up. But what we've been seeing from not so much this trailer, but from the news coming out of PAX West, is that it seems to actually really be working extremely well, where people are playing the game and saying, oh, this is amazing. This, like, any fears or concerns that this game wasn't going to work because it was too complex for a 2D Zelda or something, all that stuff is, like, gone. This is just a great game.
You'll love to hear about it.
Yeah, it's just good news all around. We've been hearing about it. I've been hearing people talking about that the dungeons are really good and really well thought out, and that there's, like, tons of ways to solve puzzles, but they're all, like, interesting, and that, like, some of them were saying that they were playing the game and they'd solve a puzzle in a certain way, and the person showing the game, who's basically showing the game to, like, hundreds of people at the show, is like, I've never seen somebody do that before. You know, like, for, like, how you solve the puzzle. And anytime you hear that, it's good, because it means that instead of just Nintendo saying, okay, we came up with 10 solutions for this puzzle, Nintendo just created a chemistry system that worked and then bug tested it.
Yeah,
which is kind of the approach they took with Tears of the Kingdom, and that's why everything works so incredibly well in that game. And yeah, it looks like it works here. And in addition to it, some of my concerns that I had from, like, the initial trailer was like, oh, is this just going to be too easy to just place a bunch of beds on top of each other and climb up them? You know, is that going to be too easy? And it looks like they place some hard limits. Like, certain echoes are going to, like, use up more energy, and you can only place so many at a time, and then, like, the first one will disappear, which is similar to, like, the way they did the ice tower in Breath of the Wild, where, like, if you created, like, I think it was, you could create 3 ice towers, and if you created a 4th one, then the first one you created of those original 3 would, like, explode. And like, you could even use that in your puzzle solving, because you could use it. The fact that the piece would go away could trigger something to, you know, so it can be actually, that aspect can be used in the puzzle solving as well, while also limiting, like, how many echoes you can just dump on the screen to solve your problem automatically, you know? So it's kind of cool. I've heard good things. I've heard there's, like, a Link boss fight or something that people played in the demo, and they said it's really good.
They teased that in the trailer.
Yeah.
At the end.
And people have played it, said it's really good. Like, it really shows you, like Link is actually, like, a really tough guy, you know?
Link
he fights the way you would fight if you were playing as Link in this game, and he is hard to beat because of that, because he's got all those power, all his abilities and his sword attacks and stuff, and he's like, there's a difference between him and Zelda. He's, like, a bit sturdier, you know? He has less magic, but more combat, and you have to come up against that, and now you're, like, on the opposite side of it. You're, like, seeing the world from Link's enemy's perspective, in a sense. it looks really good. Like I said, every time they release a new trailer for this game, it looks better.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I'm excited, and I also keep hearing that the world is just giant. It's just massive, which is cool.
It's a big world.
Yeah, but that is it for our trailers and for our On Beat news section. So let's move on to our final segment, full spoilers. This week on Full Spoilers, we are talking about Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. This is the prequel to Mad Max Fury Road, and it follows Furiosa instead of Max. There's like a brief cameo of Max in the movie, and that's it. That's all you see.
I think I missed it.
You see him from behind. They didn't even cast Tom Hardy.
No, yeah, because
they just had somebody from behind.
I saw him cast in the credits, this dude as Mad Max, and I was like, what? Where was he in the movie?
There's a scene. It's when Furiosa is getting back from after she lost her arm and everything.
Yeah.
And she goes back to the Citadel and kind of collapses and gets taken into that cave thing or whatever.
Oh,
like,
right.
Right around when she collapses, it cuts to this like really wide shot and you see a car and a guy standing looking over like the horizon. So like where the Citadel is, that's
that
it.
was supposed to be Max. Okay.
Yeah, that's his car. That's what makes it more recognizable, I guess.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. That totally like went over my head.
But yeah, like that's it. That's the Mad Max cameo. Plus there's some stuff like in the credits, they play like scenes from Fury Road.
Oh yeah. The credits have like scenes from Fury Road. It's kind of cool because like the movie starts with Furiosa as like a young girl and you know, like it starts with like her kidnapping. And so like I kind of thought this is a movie that encompasses the life of Furiosa, and I kind of like throwing those clips into the credits to like, kind of like, you know, like, oh yeah, like that's the continuing story of Furiosa.
Mm-hmm.
Because Fury Road was basically Furiosa's story as much as Max's.
Yeah. Well, Fury Road wasn't even really a story. It was just a giant action scene.
Yes. I don't know what to say about this. I haven't already said about Fury Road because like they're very similar, but yeah, this is amazing.
They're very similar but different too. Structurally very different, I think. Like aesthetically very similar.
Yes.
Priority-wise very similar, like in the way they do action scenes and stuff. But like structurally very different. Like Furiosa was like entirely, basically like one giant action scene.
Yeah.
You know, it just kept continuing and evolving and that was just one big action scene. Furiosa takes place over a really long stretch of time. Half the movie is her as a little kid.
Oh yeah.
And
I was surprised that they lingered on that so long. It's like you don't see Anya Taylor-Joy until like the second hour.
Over an hour into it, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of like road combat scenes in Furiosa, but it's not like one continuing thing. They're like different excursions. Like different adventures, you know?
Yeah, and it's broken up into chapters too, which they didn't do with Fury Road. So like there's like 5 chapters total.
It's funny because when I watched the movie, it was almost like as I was watching the movie before it got to like the second half and started getting more into the action scenes and stuff. I'm like, this is like a really interesting like SimCity game. Like as a show. It's all about like managing the cities and stuff. Like that was a big part of the movie was like, oh, okay, so you have Gastown and you have like the place where the bullets are made and stuff. And then now you have to, how do you develop those towns? And, you know, what do you do when somebody invades that town and then takes over? But you still have to have negotiations with them because they have goods that you need and they have goods that you need. And it's like, that's like a big part of the movie here. Whereas like in Fury Road, like I said, it was just a big action scene, you know, there wasn't really time for anything.
Well,
else.
Yeah, there wasn't like, because the main conflict in Fury Road was, it was a road chase. It was, you know, Furiosa took off with the brides, and then it was just like a giant chase, you know.
What was cool here is it starts out with basically like you hear audio and stuff that's basically describing the apocalypse that caused all of this. Talking about like the shortages and stuff. And then you're seeing like, you see this map and you see Australia from like satellite and it zooms in and it's just a big wasteland and it's zooming into this huge red desert wasteland and it keeps zooming in and all of a sudden you're like in a completely green area. Like it goes from wasteland to green. And this is the green space that we heard about so much in Fury Road, where Furiosa came from, where she was kidnapped from. And you really get like the way they zoomed in, like seeing the continent continent of Australia and then pulling in further and further until you finally saw like the green area. And then you saw how all encompassing it was once you got into that. Really shows you how this green space is like interesting because it's like a seemingly large space, but it's really fragile because it's like buried in the desert. It's completely surrounded by the desert. You know, it's like an oasis from the desert. And that is interesting because in Fury Road, they passed through, like she was looking for the green space and they passed through it and didn't even realize because it was so completely wiped out.
Yeah.
And here you kind of see like, oh, well, that makes sense. Like this was a very fragile existence that these people were living in this green space.
They're trying to like make sure that they remain hidden and the outsiders don't know. And in fact, people outside don't know the green space exists until like these people found it. The people who kidnapped Furiosa, they find it.
Some like random raiders.
Yeah, random raiders. And they kidnap Furiosa with the idea like they're going to bring her to Dementus. They bring her to Dementus, or like the one lone survivor that group does.
There was no survivors.
He survives long enough to get there.
Yeah, long enough to bleed out when they ask him what the green space is or where that is.
Yeah, but like the idea is like he's going to present her as like proof it's real, and like she's going to be able to lead them back to it.
Mm-hmm. Which she doesn't, because she's Furiosa, and she's will incarnate, and she doesn't do that. So
when it's the child actress playing Furiosa, they show Chris Hemsworth's characters for the first time. Is that like de-aging tech they're using on Chris Hemsworth? He looked kind of weird in those scenes.
I think he looks weird in general. There's some prosthetic makeup.
He does, but like
used.
Later in the movie when he's older, he looks like Chris Hemsworth. He just looks kind of strange in like the earlier shots.
I'm not sure. I think it might just be the prosthetics, and that
it
might be the hair color with the red and the hair and everything.
Yeah.
But they heavily use prosthetics. It's very like Roman or Greek, the way they play him. I mean, even the naming, which is not unique to him. That's like in the franchise that these names are very like Greek Roman names.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And Morton Joe, like he uses like Roman style names for his lieutenants too. So it's interesting because like Dementus's crew, like they are rivals to a Morton Joe.
Mm-hmm.
They're their own thing, but everybody's like still using like the same naming conventions.
And it's not just that. Like Dementus is literally riding on 3 motorcycles as a chariot.
Yeah.
Which has got to be one of the coolest things I've seen in a Mad Max movie in general. Just 3 motorcycles being used as a chariot. Yeah, what do you think of Chris Hemsworth's character in this? Because he's an interesting character.
Yeah, he's a
bastard. He's a horrible person, but he's like a lunatic that you can't tell if he's like smart but crazy, or if he's like a moron that just portrays himself as smart, or like tries to portray himself as smart to dumber people. He's kind of like almost Trumpian.
Yeah, he's almost Trumpian. My read on him is like, he's a dumbass with an inflated ego and like an inflated sense of self, and thinks he's like more important than he is, and just like managed to convince a bunch of people like dumber than he is that like he is more important than he really is.
But what's interesting is, because that was my impression too, but the one thing that makes me kind of question that is there's a scene where I mentioned before, I can't remember what it was. I think it was, we were talking about House of the Dragon, and I was talking about how there was a scene, it was the blood and cheese scene, and how that like really felt like a video game, like escort mission kind of thing or something. Like you were playing through a game. There's a moment like that in this. And that's the kind of scene that kind of maybe changed my mind, not for the scene itself, but for what it ended up actually being, which is there's a scene where Praetorian Jack and Furiosa visit the gas town after he had taken it over. And you see there's just like all the people are like rising up against Dementus basically. And they're like barely keeping him in check. And Dementus is like, hey, like we're going to call a meeting of the warlords. You have to be there. Everybody's blaming me for this and it's not my fault. And it's like when that scene happens, it's like, yeah, because you're an idiot. It's like the same narrative you're talking about. But then a lot of that ended up, I called into question, is that actually the case? Or is it that it was a setup? Because the meeting itself was a setup. Right. They told them that there was going to be a meeting, and all of that was a setup, and they lit Gastown on fire, and they almost went to Gastown and fell for the trap completely. Yeah. So his trap almost
they did,
worked.
except Furiosa told him it was a trap, and Morton Joe to his credit, like, realize, like, yeah, Furiosa is right about that.
Which makes me wonder how much of what we saw of his leadership failing was his leadership failing and how much of it was a trap, like him showing them that scene to set up that meeting so that he could lay a trap.
Right. Maybe he is smarter.
He's definitely crazy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's insane. He is absolutely insane.
Is he crazy and smart, or is he crazy and stupid and just somehow manages to make it through?
Right.
Because it's hard to tell.
Like, and Morton Joe is smart. You could tell. Like, he's easy to read. But yeah, Chris Hemsworth, it's an interesting character to me, like, and he plays him wonderfully too. It's so over the top.
He uses that like really annoying like Australian voice, that specific Australian dialect that Chris Hemsworth himself does not have.
Right,
that, like, kind of high pitched, squeaky kind of. It's funny.
Yeah, it's funny. Chris Hemsworth, he's fantastic in this. Like,
it's funny because I saw an interview with Chris Hemsworth where somebody else was talking about, they were talking about good accents, and he said, like, I think it was Chris Hemsworth, and he said, like, they said, like, you know, oh, I think the Australian accent's nice, and he's like, oh, really? I think, and he was basically using, like, this one. Like, you know, like, to, like, kind of mock his own, like, Australian heritage or whatever, and the accent in Australia, and make it sound, like, really, like, over the top and stupid. And that's what he was doing here. Like, his character is, like, it's kind of like, the best way I can put this is, when you think of, like, a British accent, you probably think of, like, a really high class, you know, really hyper intelligent, you know, like,
yeah, but then there's Cockney, which is, you know,
exactly.
Like,
and then,
which is like,
the other side.
Yeah, you know, like,
and then there's the other side, which is Cockney, which is like the lowest of low brows.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, the real Cockney isn't even like that, but like the way we portray it is like that because it's in such stark contrast. This is like the Australian version of that, where it's like this, like, really kind of like nasally kind of
it's like,
higher
for like an American equivalent, like if you got like a deep South like accent where it's like real thick and barely discernible, like,
and
English.
You have an actor using it, but like talking like super slow too.
Yeah.
You know? Like, that's kind of like, it's like the equivalent to that with Chris Hemsworth's character. It's like, it's kind of funny, and it's kind of like every time he tries to give like a big speech or something, he's like, oh, all right, yeah, on here now, yeah, you know?
yeah, exactly.
He almost kind of sounds like an impersonation of Norm Macdonald.
It's funny to me because, like, I didn't have that context, so, like, I thought it was, like, another aspect of the character where, like, he was trying to, like, sound smart, you know, by putting on, like, that kind of an accent. And he used, like, flowery language, too, you know, like, so it sounded like he was definitely, like, trying to appear as, like, very intelligent to, like, everybody around him.
It's like somebody that's obviously unintelligent to the audience, but not to his followers. Because his followers are so just fucked already that they don't get it. And they look at him and think he's, like, hyper intelligent because of the flowery language. Again, like, it's Trumpian.
Yes.
You see, like, Trump say something and his followers are all, like, cheering for it, and it's like, what? He just sounds like the biggest idiot in the world. Like, how can you think that sounds smart or something? That's kind of what it is reminiscent of to me in a weird way.
Oh yeah, for sure.
A lot of this movie was, you know, like we said, it's Furiosa.
A lot of it is
Furiosa.
Like Fury Road. Furiosa is obviously, she's on her quest for revenge, but she's kind of inadvertently caught up in this conflict between Dementis and Immortan Joe, where Dementis is, like, trying to take over the Citadel.
Mm-hmm.
He's plotting to take the Citadel away from Immortan Joe. And that's the central conflict of the film.
Yeah, she's, like, alternating between looking for revenge and just trying to survive.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, like, when she's young, you can tell that she's looking for revenge, but she's not putting anything into action. She's just trying to survive. And she's doing some pretty smart things, like when she cut off her hair and made, like, a wig out of her own hair and used that to, like, slip away.
Yes.
From Erectus. You can tell, like, that's what it is. Like, the first half is her trying to survive. And the second half is, like, now she's kind of gotten the skills she needs. She has this mission of trying to get back to where she came from. That gets kind of taken away from her. And she only just really has revenge left. And that kind of sets her up for where she is in Fury Road, too. Where she just is looking for purpose now. And it's just like, okay, I can help these women escape. And that's, like, all I can really do.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Like Fury Road, I think even more so here, aesthetically, the visuals are very, like, hyper-realism. You can see, like, so much detail in every frame. You can see, like, every grain of sand, you know, like, it's all, like, high shutter speed, like,
and again, there's this really vivid, stark use of color. This is a movie that's set in like this bleak desert wasteland, but the way like George Miller manages to weave color into the film, despite the setting, is great. Like the one scene where Dementis and like his men, they comes across like the war boy for the first time, and you know he has like the flare, and the one guy is like, "What's this?" And he throws it down and switches up, and it just comes up red. It's like this really vivid red that like fills the entire screen, and it's visually it's stunning.
Yeah,
the way they do it.
They heighten the colors. They way over sharpen everything that you see so that you can see like every textural detail. And this is very odd for anything set in a desert scene, because usually when you see movies that are set in a desert, they go for that kind of hazy, miragey in the distance, kind of blurry look.
Yes, they don't do that.
You know,
here.
And they don't do that at all here. Like
No.
you can, it has an incredibly deep depth of field.
They are not
Like you can see way to the horizon line in like sharp contrast.
One thing is like they do that because they want to emphasize, oh, the desert is hot. George Miller is not interested in letting you know the desert is hot. George Miller,
I think that's
assumes you already know that.
Remember where I was talking about when we watched Fury Road, when we were talking about that, and I said the reason why I'd put off watching it for so long is because I live in the desert.
Right.
And I hate the desert, even though I live in it. And it's like, I just don't want to see desert imagery. That's the kind of desert imagery, the stuff he's not doing, the kind of heat wave type stuff that I don't want to see that. I don't want to feel like I'm hot in the desert and dehydrated when I'm watching a movie. I just walk outside and that's what I feel.
Right, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that was like the pleasant surprise of Fury Road, is that it doesn't do that at all. And that's again the case here, but I think even more so. Like things are even sharper. The depth of field is even deeper than it usually is. The colors are even more heightened than they were in Fury Road. And I remember when I saw the trailer for this movie, I thought like, man, it looks very CG heavy. Whereas like Fury Road, a big part of the selling point was that it was mostly practical. Like there's obviously a lot of CG in Fury Road too, but like it's kind of well hidden and they kind of focus more on like practical stuff and big explosions and stuff that are not computer generated. And that's kind of like a big focus. And then when I saw the trailer for Furiosa, I'm like, it looks good, but it looks like there's a lot more CG going on in it. I'm not sure if that's so much the case or if it's just that they really heightened up the look of the film. Like they sharpened it up so much that like everything has kind of almost like a crisp outline to it. Like nothing kind of blurs around the edges. And that kind of makes it look like a little artificial, but like in an intentional way.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like what I have to say visually about this. It's like Fury Road, but more.
Yeah, exactly.
The other kind of main thing I want to talk about is that this movie has one pretty long, I think it's like almost 20 minutes long action sequence. And it doesn't even involve either of the main antagonists. Doesn't involve Joe or Dementis at all.
Oh, yeah.
And it's in the middle of the movie. It's like right at the halfway point pretty much of the movie. And it is a absolutely fantastic like piece of art. Achievement in filmmaking, this one like 20-minute long action sequence. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's the Octobus attacking the convoy.
Yeah, the Octobus, who was another gang leader in this world, like who was allied with Dementis, but like it was clear like Dementis pissed him off when he came up with that plot to disguise like some of Octobus's men as like war boys to try and get them to open the gates and sneak in, trying to get into Gastown.
And they were like killing him.
Yeah, they were killing him because it wasn't working.
They wanted it to look real.
Yeah, they wanted it to look real, so they were killing him. That was Octobus's men, and he was very clear he was not cool with that.
He yelled out, like, you're a bastard!
Yeah, you're a bastard. And then you don't really see like anything with the relationship between them after that until like that scene comes up when it's clear, oh yeah, Octobus, isn't he allied with Dementis? So he's like, well, not anymore. Like,
yeah. Well, they see him and they say, oh, he's with Dementis. The war boys say he's with Dementis, and Jack says like, no, they broke off.
Yeah.
Like they rebelled or whatever.
They rebelled. Like, yeah. So Octoboss gets his in that scene, in that sequence.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It doesn't involve Dementis at all. It doesn't involve Joe at all. And it's like the best scene in the movie.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
And it's because the Octoboss is all about like flying machines. That's like his thing, I guess. He has all these like hang glider like devices and he attacks from above and stuff when he's doing it. And so it creates this like just absolutely fantastic action scene where you see like all of the many uses of this giant like convoy truck that they built, the war machine that they built. And like you see like all the machinations they went through. Like, okay, well, like somebody creates a leak in a fuel line. Well, we have to have a way to fix that. And this is how we do that. And, you know, we have a defense system in the rear and we have somebody that's sole job is to like sit amongst the food that's in the back of the truck where the button is to activate the rear weapon when they need it. And everything kind of leads up to that. And it just creates this like absolutely gorgeous shot when you see Octoboss's like hang glider with this like these long billowing cloth tails or trails hanging behind it, and they all get caught up in the weapon and on the back of the war machine or whatever it's called. And it's really just this gorgeous scene with this like these streaming cloths like spinning behind the truck. And yeah, it's an amazing sequence. The whole thing is just from beginning to end. Everybody, all of the Citadel's people except for Jack and Furiosa die. They get completely taken out. And that's when Furiosa, who had been disguising herself as a boy, gets exposed. And she tries to, get away. And Jack is basically like, well, you can leave if you want. He's like, but you're not going to make it anywhere. Stick with me and I'll teach you the skills you need to go anywhere in this world. And I'll even help you. I'll give you your fuel. I'll give you wheels, whatever you need to go wherever you want to go. I'll give it to you if you stick with me.
Yeah. And they become pretty close. Yeah.
By the way,
Jack is like her only ally in this world.
By the way, Jack was in Living, the remake of Akira that we watched on Advocates.
Oh, nice.
He was the author that was taking him out to like bars and parties and stuff.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Jack is like her only friend and ally in this world. And unfortunately, it's short-lived because they get captured by Dementis and he ends up, eventually, like, killing Jack.
Yeah, he drags him behind a motorcycle and then has dogs sicked after him as he's being dragged.
Yes.
So it's pretty horrible death for him. And he has Furiosa chained up by her injured arm.
Yes.
That they had injured in their capture, and chains her up by the injured arm, so she has to watch the whole thing. And he's just so busy watching what's happening, he doesn't realize that she escapes until he walks around after he's dead and says like, oh, that's enough, let's stop now or whatever. Goes around his truck and sees just her arm hanging there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. She severs her arm off to escape while he's not looking.
Yeah.
Which again, like, showcases her character that Furiosa is a survivor and she's gonna do whatever she needs to do to survive.
Yeah, she's like manifested will. That's what I can't remember the line, but what was the line they used and not in this movie, in John Wick, to describe John Wick. They say like, he is like pure will or something like that. That's like Furiosa, you know? She's like pure will. And she got out because she had to get out, so she did. And she never complained once about having to sever her own arm. That's, Furiosa, man. Crazy action movie. Glad you finally got to see it.
Oh, yeah. Glad I got to see it, too. Amazing movie. Just as good as Fury Road. Does not miss.
Yeah.
I recommend it.
It's different. It's like, in many ways, it's very similar. It's a Mad Max movie. It's a modern Mad Max movie. So it's doing the same kind of stuff. He's taking some of the same techniques he used for the production quality and the way they're filming it. I think he's using a lot of the same probably crew to pull off these action scenes and stuff and do it justice, to do it the right way. But like, as I said, Fury Road is like this road chase movie. The whole movie is this road chase. And Furiosa is more like you're seeing all aspects of this. It's more like a different Mad Max movie in that sense. Like the older Mad Max movies were more like that, you know, where they weren't just like a short moment in time, but more like an actual adventure, you know? And Fury Road was just kind of like a moment in time, like a singular moment. And Furiosa is like this bigger span that's covering her through her childhood and through growing up in this harsh environment as an adult, several adventures, adventures and then everything that leads up to who she becomes. Guess the last thing I could say is that, man, they did a brutal end for Dementus, huh?
Oh, they did. Yeah. Like, geez. Like, basically, like, growing a tree on top of him.
Yeah.
Like,
through him. Yeah.
Yeah, through him. Yeah.
Awesome. Furiosa was good, so I'm glad you finally got to
awesome
see it.
movie.
I got to see it in IMAX. It was fun.
Nice.
If you get a chance, if it rescreens in IMAX, it's worth it just for that one chase scene alone to see it in IMAX. But yeah, Furiosa, amazing. Great follow-up to Fury Road. Sadly, probably the last Mad Max thing we're ever going to get.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what the future holds, but, you know.
I mean,
not with
it didn't
charge.
really do financially that well. And George Miller is like I think he's like in his 70s or 80s now.
I said we will see what the future holds.
Are you personally going to fund the next movie?
Yes.
You're starting a lemonade stand to fund
lemonade stand, yeah.
just to fund this movie. So that's it. And that's it for this week's podcast. Next week, we are going to be catching up on another movie that we missed out on seeing. This one I didn't get to see either. I really wanted to see this in theaters, but I was moving around when this movie was out in theaters, and it was only briefly in theaters by us. It was kind of an art house theater release style, so it was only out in theaters for like a week or something. So I didn't get to see it, but now we both get to see it, and that is The Boy and the Heron, which is the latest movie from Hayao Miyazaki. His last movie, except that he's like already started working on another one, I think. He like said he retired from it and then was like showed up at the offices the next day or something.
Right. Oh yeah.
But that's kind of the pattern with Miyazaki. He says he's done and then he starts on another project like immediately.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So what we could say is, The Boy and the Heron is Hayao Miyazaki's most recent last movie.
There you go.
But yeah, so that'll be fun. It'll be, talk about a Studio Ghibli movie. I don't think we ever have on this podcast. So that'll be, interesting. But that's next week, so stay tuned for that. Thank you, everybody, for listening. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will. He is at FoxoHero. You can check out our website, thetotalscreen.com. Please do. If you go to our website and open up a container store for any of our podcast episodes, scroll down to the last paragraph. You'll find all of the relevant links to our SoundCloud page, our RSS feed, everything you need, all of our social accounts, everything. It's all there. So check that there. You can also subscribe to our podcast through your favorite podcast client of choice, like Apple Podcast or Pocket Cast. And you can check out and subscribe and like videos on our YouTube channel. And that has the entirety of our podcast, every episode, all 155 episodes with this one. This is episode 155. So all 155 episodes of OnScreen, all 300 episodes of the weekly set, which was the podcast we did before, and additional content that we've done in the past. So all of that is still up there on the YouTube channel. Check out that if you want. If you just go through the SoundCloud page or through like our RSS feed or the podcast clients, you're only going to get like the most recent episodes are the only ones that are available there. But the entire backlog is on our YouTube page, so you can check that out as well. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you for listening to the OnScreen podcast, the official podcast of The Total Screen. Visit our website at thetotalscreen.com. This podcast can be found on any major podcast client, including Pocket Cast and Apple Podcast. The entire backlog of this podcast and other content can be found on our YouTube channel.